So this video is gonna do two for one. I just wanted to say a few words about the outline builder for the argument paper that is in this week's module. Um, Keep in mind you don't have to do anything with this in terms of turn anything in. This, like our previous papers, this is basically going to be to help you get down some of your ideas and begin to organize them for the sake of uh, hammering out your rough draft. So I won't read through all of it. I just want to point out a few things. Um, Here in the introduction, this is the thing that we have to remember with all of these builders. Do all the stuff that we normally would do in an introduction, but focus on these things as well. Um, as we've talked about in class for the last couple of weeks, this argument paper is going to focus pretty exclusively on your ability and your effectiveness in composing an argument. So you'll want to do these number of things here. Not just these. This is just to help orient you in a useful direction. Keep that in mind. Um, as far as the body section of the argument paper, these are just some of the ways we have been conceiving of body paragraphs throughout the semester. It's not going to be a whole lot different here. Um, what I would remind you to do, pay careful attention to, is whatever you end up, in your thesis statement. Um, you'll want some of that language. You want some resonance between your thesis statement and how you compose your topic sentence. Each body paragraph led off by that topic sentence should focus on just one aspect, one element of your argument. And then you'll have some evidence, direct quote or paraphrase. As we've talked about last week, you'll want to discuss at length what that source is doing for you and your argument. Um, and you'll want to be sure to directly connect it, directly establish that this source means something and matters to your argument. And you'll just have a number of body paragraphs doing that. Um, I have some continuation here. I mean, this is enough room for three. You could have five or seven, however long it takes you to fully lay out and articulate your argument as you see it. Recall that it's not enough to simply do what we're gonna do, say what we're gonna say, and be done with it. We want to have some kind of section where we concede common ground, where we acknowledge um, where there may not be much disagreement um, with certain aspects of people who hold different points of view than our own. Um, Here I put at least a paragraph, but more realistically, probably a few paragraphs on this matter, on conceding or establishing common ground. And you want to treat it like you would a body paragraph. Have a resonant topic sentence. Um, Provide some evidence, provide some kind of quote or paraphrase from a source reflective of this common ground. And I have a note here to remind you, this doesn't have to happen just in one section toward the end of your paper or one paragraph. This can happen throughout. Engaging with different points of view, whether you're conceding or whether you're demonstrating how your point of view is, the right one or the better one. This can happen throughout your paper. So keep that in mind too. And the same thing's going to go for where you refute. You'll spend time up here arguing your points. You'll perhaps concede some common ground, but ultimately you're going to finish off, just like we've been talking about the last few weeks, reasserting and reestablishing your argument and your point of view. Again, using source material when and where appropriate. And just like with conceding or establishing common ground. This does not have to, actually should happen throughout your paper, but at the very, very least, minimally, you're going to want to have a section, have some paragraphs doing that. This, again, this is something that could be and should be woven throughout. So this is another sort of section, as I'm seeing it here, or part of your paper. You should, I mean, as you argue your points, as you explain what the sources are doing for you, you should be talking about stakes and stakeholders. Um, but again, if you need to organize it or you need to see this as a separate part of your paper, that's fine too. But I would encourage you to get into this type of discussion um, as you are making your case throughout the body of your paper. But in this form that I have here on this outline builder, you can almost think of this as a sort of way into your concluding remarks, or I called it a pre-conclusion here. Um, when you get to your conclusion, again, in addition to doing the stuff that we normally would do in a conclusion that we have been doing and working on all semester, um, entertain this question for several sentences in your conclusion. If I'm right, what should happen next? I think that'd be an interesting way to sort of finish off this idea. Okay, let's talk. I just wanted to spend a few minutes walking you through this. Let's now switch gears a little bit. I want to um, I want to go through, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We've done a number of example papers now. I trust you to take this document that it will also be in our module this week and use it wisely as you draft and prepare for peer review and to turn in your paper this week. Um, so we'll just go over a few of the sections. We're not going to go over every page. Um, and we'll do so briskly. Um, I want to point out that this is, well, before I get there, some of you are still not formatting your papers. Look at this. Please at least include your name. Um, I haven't wanted to do this all semester, but this is, aside from our final exam, this is our last paper, so I'm going to be scrutinizing, as I've been reminding you, your formatting a little more carefully than I have been, and that means I really would like to not deduct points because you're not formatting your papers right. So please do that. Use this paper as a sort of example or a template in that regard if you need to. Um, Look here. Um, I wanted to just point out this is an AI generated paper. I'll give it a quick scroll so you can see what we're working with here. Um, I would say that overall it's a reasonably, oh, by the way, some of you also in terms of formatting really need to work on your works cited page. Um, Again, take a look at this if you need any inspiration. Um, this is a reasonably effective response to the prompt. However, I didn't just feed it my prompt and take the first thing it gave me. I had to work with it a number of times, a number of volleys back and forth to get it in this shape. And even in this shape, it's still perhaps a mediocre response to the prompt. And I'm saying that, and you'll see as we move through it why that's significant. That if you are ever in the position to or entertaining the possibility of having a chatbot stand in and do work for you. Just know that in all the ways this paper might be acceptable, or even some of the things it does reasonably well, it falls short in a lot of ways. And that's with me having returned, basically having the chatbot revise it a bunch of times with my comments and feedback. Um, so if you were to just feed it a prompt and take the first thing you get, it really does not work out well. All right. let's get into this. Um, the title here, AI in Higher Ed, a tool that should be guided, not banned. I thought it was at first a little bit ironic that a chatbot would be basically taking this approach. But then I thought maybe it's not really. Maybe it's interesting that in that way the chatbot is standing up for itself. I don't know. We'll see. Um, I don't really want to say much about the hook. Just know that with all the vast resources that a chatbot has at its disposal in terms of being a large language model, and being able to uh, produce patterned language in that regard, that, this isn't exactly an exemplary hook. I didn't really give it clear instructions to. Perhaps I could have done better. Just know that, I mean, some of you, when we've talked about this throughout the semester, this is a difficult part of the paper. Try not to stress about it too much. Just do the best you can, maybe revisit it a few times, but mostly you want to start to set the tone for your reader, begin to situate them with the discussion you're about to have. And this is pretty reasonable, for our purposes. I think overall the chatbot moved pretty briskly through this introduction, pretty rapidly. As you know by now, I want you to linger on some of these moments a little longer than this. This is just a little bit of what I have highlighted here. This sentence in peaks, a little bit quick. Um, yeah, it establishes a bit of context. It situates the reader a little further. But I think there's some more that could and should be said about this topic for this paper in this moment. What I thought was good about this sentence, especially as a teaching moment, is this move here that some see AI as one way, and then the next sentence, others see it as another way. This move of tacking sort of back and forth between two points of view, that dynamic, that general maneuver is something that helps um, bring the idea of argumentation into tangible relief for your reader. So you should do something like this regularly throughout your paper. Take many opportunities to remind your reader that you're actually composing an argument. You're not just summarizing or writing a report on your topic. Um, yeah, let's move on from there. Okay, I have a lot to say about this part. So, what caused me to pause so long on this moment? Because once again, this is a very rapidly developing introduction. It's not that it doesn't check some of the boxes, it conveys information, it does minimal situating. Um, but this sentence, it comes basically right before the thesis statement. And I felt like there's so much. You can pause the video and read my comment here. I just thought that there's so much um, that it was missing, that I felt like to get to this point from how we started, I just felt like there was some other information that ought to be included, either before it or maybe even after it, before we get to the thesis statement. I mean, if you were limited to, less than a full page for an introduction, this might be as good as you can get. But as you know, in our class, for our purposes, take your time, develop your ideas a bit more than was done here. In terms of a thesis statement, some of the things that I appreciated, for example, right here, the I argue that I want to see it look as clinical as it may seem, and probably is. I want to see you do this at least a few times in your paper. I want to see that you are aware that you are making an argument. Um, I'm not, I'm not trying to diminish or erode your sophistication, because this is rather blunt. Um, but I want to see it. I need to be able to evaluate that. This highlighted green part looks to me like the main claim, the sort of central argument that's happening in this paper. So if we wanted to, and we were going to diagram the entire paper, we could go through and highlight all the places where this claim shows up over and over again. And that's actually one of the things that this paper does pretty reasonably well. So that's something I'm going to be asking you to do, and I want to see from you. I want to see you in some words or other, like we have here, we'll get to it in a moment, especially in your topic sentences. Reiterate, repeat, remind your reader of your main claim often. This goes to transitioning. This goes to something called signposting, and this all works together in order to cultivate a sense of logical cohesion or flow, as we've been talking about all semester. And then you have this great word here, the word because. This is an important word. It doesn't have to always be this word, but the idea of a because. I argue this thing because what follows this word are the reasons for your argument. It's the support for your argument. The examples, I've highlighted those here in blue. So in this one, I argue that AI should be thoughtfully integrated rather than broadly prohibited because support learning, prepare students, create opportunities. Those ideas connected to this main claim, we ought to be able to see throughout the rest of the paper. This is what they call the roadmap effect. There's directionality to this thesis statement. There's predictability to this thesis. This is one of the areas I really had to work with the chatbot on to dial in this thesis statement. As it is, even still, again, it's a little bit clunky and um, I guess lacking in sophistication, but that's okay. I want it to be illustrative. I want it to be instructional. I don't need it to be fancy. I need you to be able to see, claim, and support. And some of these ideas here in pink and in red, these will help later on set up um, things like conceding and common ground and rebuttal and refutation. Um, so this thesis statement is actually sort of two parts, and that's okay. Pardon me. So that's what's going on here. That's what all these colors mean. Again, you can pause this and linger on this as you need to. So here's a topic sentence. One important reason to integrate AI into higher education. Um, that's the resonant language here that's being used in the thesis statement is so that it can support learning when it is used as a tool within guided process rather than a substitute. And that, of course, harkens back to this part of the thesis statement. Notice in this topic sentence, we have the claim, we have the reason, we have a little bit of it spelled out here more. Notice we're not trying to jam all of our support, all of our reasons for our claim into one topic sentence. That's because we're just going to focus on one at a time, one element, one aspect of our argument at a time. Try to do a similar thing. Please try not to jam all of your claims, all of your reasons into single paragraphs like that. They need time and space to develop. They need room. Um, So let's talk a little bit more. There's topic sentence. There's a little bit of this topic sentence is there's a little bit of bridge. I mean, I'm sorry, there's no bridge here. It goes straight from topic sentence then to um, integrated source. In this case, a paraphrase. Um, Here's a longer example or a longer explanation of my comment here. All I want to say here is it's often effective to write a little bit after your topic sentence and before your source. Um, and I have a number of examples of what you might do here, defining terms or explaining something that might seem complicated or just making sure everybody's on the same page. Um, Um, and then here, after you do that, so after you go from topic sentence, integrate your source, you want to take a moment, a sentence, maybe two, and just almost summarize. You're wanting to convey to your reader what you just read. You're not quite getting into the place where you're going to explain things or analyze things yet. Just just do a very quick debrief. Um, this is super quick. And in fact, it's very classic AI language here. Um, so be aware of that. But then we get into a pretty reasonable, this is a pretty typical discussion of a source, especially in an advanced composition class. For a 101 or a 102 class, this would be um, probably above average, but this is pretty typical for an advanced comp course. And the reason why is because there's some things here. I have in the comment, again, pause if you need to, that I would like to see added to this as as a supplement, as an augment to this reasonably effective sort of beginning of a discussion. Um, you could take this opportunity to discuss any relevant, meaningful rhetoric or rhetorical moves, as we've been working on all semester. Um, you could also, again, augment this or supplement it by including something meaningful and related in terms of your own insight or opinion and experience, your voice, in other words. Um, Even though there's going to, in this case, in this paper, be a separate section for a rebuttal or refutation, you could begin doing some of that work here. So there are a number of ways that you could take this quite typical treatment of a source um, and expand on it, really, is what I'm after. One of the things also, I don't know if I wrote it here in this quote or in this comment. Let me see here. Um, if nothing else, relate it to your argument. You started off with a claim that's very resonant with the thesis statement where your argument lives. You integrated a quote. You began to discuss it insufficiently here, but at least it's a start. Make sure you bring it around to your argument in pretty unambiguous terms. I mean, we could probably read into this and make a case that, oh, the argument's in there somewhere. Okay, fine. Put a fine point on it toward the end of the paragraph. All right. You can read that if you want to. A lot of these paragraphs, especially since they're AI written, they're pretty patterned. And I should just blame it on AI. A lot of our writing, when it comes to these term papers, are pretty patterned. So we could go through each of these paragraphs and we could probably say the same things about them. I'm not going to do that because everything that you sort of need is contained in these paragraph or these comments here, and also in taking into account a lot of the things that we've been discussing with our previous papers can be brought to bear here as well, from topic sentence to source integration to expanding and um, cultivating effective discussion subsequent to the integration. Let us, okay. All of those paragraphs I just scrolled past as I was rambling, these are, think of the prompt here, all right? These are all paragraphs that were um, composed uh, to explain and lay out the argument. So these are a lot of paragraphs, a lot of points, a lot of sources. Uh, I think the references are pretty light. I think a lot of you already do better than that, so keep that in mind. This is not necessarily an exemplar of masterful source work. Um, But the just at a glance, the way that it appears visually and some of the substance, this wouldn't be a bad way um, to sort of measure, at least in one sense, what you might do in that argument section. Have compose a number of paragraphs, compose a number of effective topic sentences, bring in some source work, set up your argument, do some of the things that I was recommending in my comments here by uh, engaging with the tension resultant from pointing out different points of view. This will all set up an argument sort of section of your paper. When we get down here, my comment is it becomes pretty clear when we get to a place where we're going to start um, shifting gears a little bit. In this case, we can see here at the same time, critics of AI in higher ed are right to worry. So wait a minute. The argument was, we shouldn't really worry. We shouldn't ban it. We should integrate it carefully and thoughtfully. But here, what is this? Critics are right to worry. This sounds to me like the language of establishing common ground or conceding some points. Um, so this whole section, pretty much the paragraphs are constructed similarly to the above, so we're not going to really review that. But I just wanted you to see what that shift could look like, what we're doing here. We've just got done laying out all of our points in several paragraphs um, previous to this. And now we're going to say, but maybe there's some good points over there with the opposition. Maybe we can see things eye to eye a little bit. And so what you would do is you would point that out, describe what it is, find a source that supports that claim about some common ground, for example. Um, that's what this comment is here. Then we would do the same thing, just as we talked about above. We wouldn't just walk away from it. A lot of times students, they'll point out that there's a different point of view. They'll throw in a source. They'll be like, see, I told you this is some common ground. And then they just walk away. Treat it fairly. Treat it like it's a serious consideration. And do that a number of times. And for this example, there's two moderately substantive paragraphs. Um, I wanted to point out here at the end, again, when it comes to the language, the rhetorical choices that chatbots make, sometimes a lot of times, it's just really a dead giveaway. Um, this kind of sort of stilted writing is emblematic of that. Um, And here is where the refutation or the rebuttal begins. We just had a few paragraphs that, yeah, the opposition makes some pretty good points, and maybe we could agree on some things. Still, acknowledging those risks does not or should not lead automatically to the conclusion that AI should be banned. So this is where we begin to take our argument back. We're done conceding ground. We are done establishing common ground. Now, this is the move. This is the transition here where we go back and continue with our argument. It's a great place to reestablish and reassert your argument if you hadn't in the last few paragraphs. Um, I mean, here, the topic sentences up top were mostly effective. Some of them were mostly effective. Here, this is a pretty weak topic sentence. It could stand to be bolstered by some of the things that we've been talking about. Um, yeah, and so this counter argument section, the sort of rebuttal and refutation, it wasn't just a single paragraph. I would have liked to see more of it throughout the body paragraphs. I couldn't get the chatbot to really do that. Um, But I think we've gone over enough and we've practiced enough to where I'm confident you could do that. I'd like to see that from you. I'd like to see you try anyway. Um, at least though have this last part, this section here, counter argument section. All right. What have we got here? Oh, and these are just some comments about the way the conclusion goes. A lot of boxes are checked here. This is fine. Um, I remember on our prompt, I decided to keep this part in. I think this is a neat way to sort of conceive of or conceptualize this paper. You don't have to do this throughout like we did in the discipline paper, but take another shot at it here as you wrap up. See if if this is totally outside the scope of your discussion, that's fine. You don't have to include it. But if you're talking about something that has to do with your profession or your major or anything like that, um, go ahead. Feel free to relate it to that. That'd be a neat way to sort of um, color your conclusion in a little bit more. That's really, feel free to expand all these comments if you want, but that's really all I wanted to say about this. We've been doing argument all semester. This paper just really emphasizes it. This is what I'm going to be focused on. So I just wanted to show you some of the ways that I'm going to be looking at your papers. Um, and let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and I will see you in class.